Hello, everybody. Welcome to Friends number 3. If you remember, the first week we talked about Hushai, and his claim to fame was he was a friend of King David's. That's how the scriptures spoke of him. And then our second lesson, we looked at Jesus, and we found out that Jesus had an inner circle of friends, which I guess was all right because Jesus did it. And so we're moving on. Now today, I'm delighted to have a dear friend of mine, Steve McCready, with us, Dr. Steve McCready. And so welcome, Steve.
Thanks, Pete. It's good to be here.
Yeah, and so I'm thrilled that you're here with us today because you did a lot of doctoral work along this line, correct?
I did, yeah. Friendship was, and has been for a while now, an absolute passion of mine. So I was so excited when you reached out and said, hey, Steve, we're going to learn about this at Lifehouse Church.
Yeah.
And would you be willing to come and have a conversation with us?
Yeah, so this is awesome. So I want to jump right in so we don't waste a lot of time chin wagging, which you and I can do.
Yeah, we can, for sure.
I want to find out from you about the number of friends that a person can generally have. Like some people say, oh, yeah, I only have one good friend, or I have 10. Walk us through that. Like, what does that mean, and how do we do that?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And actually, we went through a similar series like this at our church just down the road at Faith. And I think that was like a turning point moment in our conversation about friendship as a church. And definitely one of the conversations that had the most amount of feedback from our congregation was this clarity that came around how many friends can I have, should I have, where does this fit into mission, trying to reach people, all that kind of stuff. Let me just back up though, just to kind of share a little bit of my kind of personal journey with this, because I think it might be helpful.
Yeah.
People often ask me, why did I want to study friendship when I was doing my doctorate, and where did that come from? It actually came from a really deep and I think almost broken place in my own story. So let me explain, Peter. So like yourself, I'm a very relational guy, and I love people and could spend all day, every day with people. Now, my wife's not like that at all. I'm extreme on the extrovert scale. She's probably extreme on the introvert scale. So she comes home from teaching kindergarten, grade 1 kids all day, 4 p.m. The curtains are closed. The pajamas are on.
Yeah.
She's done. She doesn't need people in that same way. By 7 o'clock at night, I'm like, I need that. I need that buzz from being around people. Being in ministry, long time, 20 years now, know lots and lots and lots of people, hundreds and hundreds of people, same as yourself, and lots and lots of great people in our lives. And I'm a pastor of a great church, surrounded by wonderful people, wonderful friends, wonderful family, but was experienced in my own life something that I could only really relate to as loneliness.
Okay.
So how is it possible to be surrounded by amazing people and still be experiencing loneliness? So that was really the driver into the conversation. Part of my learning along the way was understanding that when it comes to loneliness, first of all, that's our condition, right? I'm just trying to think, Henry Nouwen does a really brilliant job of helping us understand that that's what it is to be wounded, is that we're lonely.
Okay.
And part of the grace of Jesus to us is friendship. So the God of friendship is willing to pour grace into our lives through the medium of friends. God uses friendship in our lives.
Yeah. That's good.
And so that for me really hit in the fact that this is an important thing. And it's a very important thing for Christians to really wrestle down. Okay, what is friendship? How do I become a better friend? What's the point of this conversation? And hopefully that anchors maybe even a little bit of this series. Like, is this just another sermon series for Peter? I think it's more than that. I think this is actually a prophetic conversation that the church are starting to engage in. And I'm seeing that more and more as I look at my research and my work, and then have other conversations with other churches, other church leaders, is that there's a deep loneliness that's being experienced by many, many, many people.
Yeah.
Like COVID's a part of that. But I think actually our hyper-connected world's a part of that. Now, let me get to answering your question now, Peter. How many friends?
Let me ask you something really quick.
Okay, go.
Have you heard any connection between we're made in the image of God, and God's the social being because there's Father, Son, Holy Spirit, and so that image is within us?
Absolutely. I mean, friendship really is generated and born out of the very nature of God and the heart of God as this community. of Father, Son, and Spirit, and then a God who is, from creation on, always moving towards us in friendship with the offer of friendship. From the garden, the image of walking in the garden, Adam and Eve and God in the cool. That is a Hebrew image of friendship and intimacy in the garden. Now that's obviously fragmented and broken by the fall. But then you have God after the fall, by grace, always moving towards us. And for me, a pinnacle moment in that is, understand that the God of the Old Testament is always establishing his covenants with his friends. So that'd be an interesting study for you to look at yourself, or for, those who are following along to look at. It's like every time God establishes a covenant with his people, he always does it with a friend, someone that he calls a friend. So really interesting. And then you come to the new covenant. So let's talk about the new covenant community that's been established. John, in the upper room in John's gospel, Jesus establishing his new covenant community. Okay, and one of the things he says is, I no longer call you servants, I call you friends. Right? So you've got this epic New Testament moment where in the Old Testament, you have God's people Israel, who are his servants, okay? But he establishes his covenant with his friends. Moving into the new covenant, where you have Jesus saying, you're all my friends.
So this is interesting because we don't normally think of God, especially the God of the Old Testament, as our, quote, friend. Like he's like, I know, somebody to be almost afraid of, I suppose.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's where Trinitarian thought is really helpful here, of trying to understand this is about the entire God of the Old Testament. Because I think, you're right. Like some people compartmentalize. It's like, here's the big, bad, scary, judgmental God. And then there's the gentle spirit, or the powerful spirit, if you're reading Ezekiel, that's moving and blowing. And then, somewhere off in the future, the Son is going to arrive. And that is actually, it's really unhelpful to split those up, but to begin to see them as God was present in the Trinity in creation. And friendship was part of the generosity of the Trinity flowing into that. Now, can I answer your question before we go really far down a rabbit trail and everyone's like, what are these two guys rabbiting on about? For me, I was surrounded by people. But still feeling loneliness. And I think part of the reality was I was experiencing is really just the fruit of the world that we live in. We now live in such an interesting time in history where there are now no limitations to what we do, right? So for example, natural light. Natural light used to be the cutoff for that was the end of your day. Now we just turn a light switch on and we keep going. 5 p.m. used to be the cutoff. You went home from work. Now your work is on a phone, right? So you're just always, so we more and more pushing the limitations. And one of the ways that we have been trained culturally to do that is in the context of relationships. So we have these great things called social media and these places where we connect. Now, interestingly, you've got Instagram where you get followers, Facebook, you get friends, okay? And so it's really begun to train our understanding culturally as to what we think friends are, what they do, all that good stuff. Problem is, guys like us, naturally where we connect with people, and it's our job as pastors to do that, we end up with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that think they're our friends. and then the pressure that we have of maintaining all those relationships, and it's just not possible. And so a defining moment in my walk with Christ, but also my doctoral work, and I think for many people in my church as I led them through this friendship, discipleship piece, was starting to realize again, one of the first things you have to recognize is the limitations. You cannot physically have hundreds of friends. You can't do it. So to answer your question, how many friends can you have? Well, good research, the work done by psychologists, sociologists, which I think it's important for us to lean into. Yes, we want to be Bible people whose theology is shaped first and foremost by what we read and experience in the Word of God. But we also pay attention to the common grace of God and the goodness that he gives to us by people who are incredibly smart, much smarter than you and me, who do this work. I mean, basically, to kind of answer the question very clearly, 4 to 6 friends, tops, is what you can journey with in a really deep and meaningful way. Now, you could also have casual friends, so they kind of, psychologists break them into 3. We've got like deep friends, casual friends, acquaintances, and then the numbers go up based on your personality. Basically, but to walk deeply into what I would call biblical friendship, that's a sort of friendship that is modeled on Christ, and we'll maybe talk about that now when we get to that in a few moments. But if you're flirting with the idea that you can have deep and meaningful and life transforming friendships with hundreds and hundreds of people, it's not possible.
Give me the three kinds of friends again.
So you got deep
Deep
friends,
friends,
okay, and then I would just call casual friends,
casual friends.
and then acquaintances, people you know.
Can you give me a number associated with that? Well, that
Yeah, like so maybe a picture more than a number.
Okay.
So Larry Osborne, who you know is an American church guru guy, does some brilliant work around how to create community in the context of the
Yeah.
church. So he's written two important books: Sticky Leaders, Sticky Church, Sticky Teams is another one. Sticky Church is about small group life in the church, and so he does a lot of great work in that book to talk about how do you build deep, meaningful friendship in the context of small groups. But he uses an image that I find really helpful because I have a 9-year-old son, and the image is Lego. Okay, and so what he talks about there is the fact that every one of us, people watching along, you and I, we're like Lego blocks in that we all have a number of connecting pieces.
Okay.
But some of us have 4 connectors, some of us maybe 6, some of us maybe are one of those really long strips that has like 12 little connector dots. Some of us who are highly, highly relational and extrovert, we might even be like those green mats you put down, like the flat pieces,
Okay.
where there's like
Yeah,
lots
that's
and
good.
lots of connector
Okay.
pieces. But ultimately, everybody is limited. So it's a little bit about understanding your personality,
Right.
okay, but also then understanding your limitations. So like my wife, you know, I would say she's probably easily like a little small Lego piece, 4 to 6 pieces. But when you're connected onto her, you're really strongly
Mhm.
connected onto her. You know, someone like me, I'm maybe one of those long strips, and you can get connected on, but it's not that, you know,
Yeah.
robust a connection.
Okay.
Let me give you a number because I know that'd be helpful too.
Yeah.
Probably stage of life is a significant thing too, but the main piece of research that I engaged in around this was with the Urban Lonely in New York. And they did a huge piece of research with young adults, and they discovered that 4 to 6 is like that deep, meaningful friendship.
4 to 6. Okay.
Maybe around 10 to 20 is the casual friends. And then the number beyond that is just really based on your personality, 20 to 30, something like that.
Okay. Can you give me a little bit of definition on the different kind, the close friends, the casuals, and the acquaintances? Can you give me a little bit of definition on them?
Yeah, well, what I'll do, rather than giving a definition of that, let me pull them into like some theological way of thinking
Okay,
about
yeah, that'll work.
about
Yeah,
friendship.
Okay.
Because I know one of the questions you asked is, you know, how do you do this friendship piece?
Which we'll do next time.
Okay, so I'll hold
So-
fire on that. But to understand really the purpose of friendship, I mean, up until I got into this in a really deep way academically, I just always thought friendship was just one of those things,
Yeah.
right? It's part of people, it's part of what it is to be human, but there's not really much thought to it. One of the things I discovered was that no, friendship is actually theory. Okay, so it's actually something that really we need to give something to because it doesn't just happen by accident. Even culturally, it doesn't happen by accident. And so one of the things you do is you dig into history, is you learn that friendship began to really be understood theoretically with Aristotle. So that's going like way, way back.
Yeah.
That dude's older than you or me.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, one of the things Aristotle did was give a lot of time to thinking about, whoa, what is this concept of friendship? And he recognized the purpose of friendship is threefold. Okay. First of all, it's for fun, right? Or pleasure. He called it pleasure.
Yeah.
It's for fun or pleasure. The second, it's for gain. And so you had the whole, you know, in historical culture, you had the whole people forming friendships because there was something in it for them, right? And we still get a little bit of that too.
Absolutely.
Okay. But that could be political gain. You know, I'm going to scratch your back, you scratch my back type thing.
Yeah.
And then the third reason that friendship really existed in the classical era was character development and formation.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Aristotle writes at length about these, but like in his ideal scenario, it's that third piece. It's the character formation piece that's the real purpose. The real beautiful purpose of friendship is for the growth of the human. Okay. Now, why am I geeking out on Aristotle? Because one of the things that I think Christians they tend to think is that the Bible arrived into a vacuum, you know, but it didn't. It arrived into a real world. And so the Apostle Paul, he was a scholar, as you know.
Yeah.
He would have been deeply formed by Aristotle and by Aristotle's writing and his works and his understanding of friendship.
Yeah.
And so then you begin to understand how that shaped Paul, who then takes Aristotle's theory of friendship and then begins to work that out through his own life and ministry in the local churches that are being born in the New Testament, and actually takes it and then infuses it with the gospel and with Christ to take it even further. So it's kind of like, well, if this is what friendship looks like in the world, this is now what it should look like in the context of these redeemed communities who are being transformed by the abiding presence of Christ and, I'm speaking to Pentecostals, by the power and infusion of the Holy Spirit. Okay, so when it comes like, here's how the world views friendship, we take it as believers, and then we need to take it to the next level. And so again, back into like the purpose of friendships, I believe truly to be our sanctification. God uses friendship in our lives to grow us, to grow our character, and to grow us into the shape and image of Jesus.
Wow. So we're gonna conclude so we can come back next time. We've got three sets of three.
Yeah, like levels. They call
three
them
levels. Thank you. I know I get it sooner there. Three levels of friends. My first level, like the intimate level, depending how I'm wired, but 5 to 7 at the most.
At the most.
At the most.
And the reason for that is like back to the character formation piece. It's like you got to choose whether you run deep or you run wide. And if you choose to run wide, you're not going to get what the whole purpose of it is.
The next group is another 10 to 20-ish, which are acquaintances.
Yeah.
Then everybody else is in the next chunk, depending on how I'm wired.
Yeah. And I mean, you might be a friendly person, and so striking up friendship is a thing for you.
Yeah.
And I mean, and also seasons in life, and and even churches, right? Like one of the things I had to teach my church was like, people choose their churches based on, well, I just want to feel like I know everyone. It's not possible. So if your church is 40 people, you still can't know everyone, or whether it's 400 people or 4,000 people. And so actually, I think that's a helpful way to think in terms of church.
And friends are for fun, for gain, and character development.
Yeah. And I would suggest the character development piece is definitely an important part of the Christian version of friendship, as that kind of diversifies and moves in New Testament.
And maybe we'll touch a wee bit on this next time.
Okay.
I see that lacking. We're better fun friends. We're better gain friends. I help you build my shed. You help me build my shed, kind of thing. But sitting down and saying, let's help each other develop on our journey into Christ. I think we dropped the ball lots on that.
Yeah.
And we'll do that next time.
Okay, let's do that next time.
Thanks for joining us. This is lesson number 3 on friends. We're going to come back next time, lesson number 4, and Dr. Steve McCready is going to be with us again. See you then.
See you then.